You may have heard a phrase that sounds reassuring, maybe even comforting at first. You'll be back to normal in 6 weeks. And then 6 weeks comes and it doesn't feel like normal at all. That moment can create some doubt. It can make you wonder if something is wrong. Are you ready to get back to what you love after knee replacement? The Total Knee Success Podcast is your trusted guide with practical tips, evidence-based strategies, and no fluff. It's not personal medical advice, just solid education to help you manage pain, regain mobility, and get back to living the life you love. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Total Knee Success Podcast. I'm Michelle. If you're preparing for knee replacement or you're already in the early weeks after surgery, you may have heard a phrase that sounds reassuring, maybe even comforting at first. You'll be back to normal in 6 weeks. And then 6 weeks comes and it doesn't feel like normal at all. That moment can create some doubt. It can make you wonder if something is wrong, if you're falling behind, or if your process isn't going the way it should. The truth is, that phrase is often shared with good intentions. Surgeons want to encourage patients, friends want to offer hope, and even healthcare providers sometimes repeat it because 6 weeks is a familiar milestone on the medical calendar. By the end of this episode, you'll understand what to expect after knee replacement and how to interpret your progress as it unfolds. The idea of a 6-week process did not appear out of nowhere. There are genuine milestones that tend to occur around that time. 6 weeks is a meaningful checkpoint, but it's not the finish line. It marks a transition from early healing into a phase where strength, endurance, and movement quality are still being rebuilt. Surgical wounds have typically healed. Many patients have transitioned away from walkers or crutches or a cane. Outpatient physical therapy is well underway. Driving may be possible again for some individuals, depending on the site of surgery and medication use. But none of those milestones represent the full process of strength, endurance, or movement confidence. Around the 6-week point, what I often hear from patients is something a little different. It's not that they expect to be completely done, but they start to notice that certain things feel better, while other things still feel harder than they expected. Walking may be improving, but stairs still might feel challenging. And range of motion is coming along, but the leg doesn't feel as strong or as steady as they thought it would be by this point. From a clinical perspective, that pattern, it's expected. But without a clear understanding of the full timeline, it can be difficult to interpret what that means. A knee replacement is not like recovering from a smaller procedure where tissue simply heals and everything returns to baseline. It's a major orthopedic reconstruction that requires the body to rebuild movement patterns, restore muscle function, and recalibrate balance and coordination. In other words, healing is just the first stage. Recovery continues well beyond that. Research that follows patients over time helps illustrate this point. A longitudinal systematic review examining physical function after total knee arthroplasty found that improvement continues for many months following surgery, with the most substantial functional gains occurring in the early months, but ongoing progress extending well beyond the initial postoperative period. That pattern, early improvement followed by more gradual refinement, is exactly what clinicians see every day in rehabilitation. So what does the realistic timeline actually look like? Think of all of this healing and your progress as unfolding in phases rather than a single endpoint. The first phase is the immediate postoperative phase. This roughly covers the first 2 to 3 weeks after surgery. During this period, the body is responding to surgical trauma. Swelling is significant. Muscles are inhibited. The nervous system is adapting to a joint that suddenly feels different. Walking often begins within the first day after surgery for many patients, but it's usually slow, assisted, and cautious. The goals during this phase are straightforward: protect the surgical site, manage swelling, restore early motion, and begin gentle activation of the quadriceps muscle group. Quadriceps activation is especially important because this muscle group is often inhibited after knee surgery due to pain and swelling, and restoring that activation early helps lay the foundation for later strength and mobility. The second phase of this process typically spans weeks 3 through about weeks 6 to 8. This is the period most people are referring to when they talk about the 6-week mark. Patients usually see meaningful progress here. In fact, a large analysis of more than 12,000 patients found that people do experience clear improvements in function during these early weeks after surgery. But those improvements continue well beyond that point as strength and movement quality develop. Range of motion improves. Walking becomes smoother. Many individuals transition away from assistive devices. However, underneath that visible progress, the body is still rebuilding capacity. Strength deficits often remain somewhat significant during this stage. Muscles around the knee, particularly the quads, are often significantly weaker than before surgery. Balance and walking mechanics, those are still adapting. One study examining process trajectories after knee replacement found that patients can follow very different early process patterns in walking speed during rehab, yet nearly all individuals demonstrate meaningful functional improvement over the longer term. And this highlights an important point. Early progress varies widely from person to person. Some people improve quickly at first, others move more gradually. What's most important is the long-term trajectory, not any one single week on the calendar. The third phase of this process is the strength building phase. This typically occurs from about 2 to 6 months after surgery. Seems like a long time, but it really does take this long for your strength to return. During this stage, many people start to notice something interesting. The dramatic week-to-week changes of early rehabilitation slow down. Progress becomes a little more subtle. Strength builds gradually. Walking becomes more efficient and endurance improves. All of this is gradual. From a physiological standpoint, this is where the deeper rebuilding work happens. Muscle fibers are adapting to new demands. Neuromuscular control is improving, and the body is relearning how to distribute load through the new joint during everyday activities, such as walking up and down stairs, rising from chairs, and walking longer distances. Patient-reported outcomes often reflect this steady improvement. Large clinical outcome analyses involving thousands of knee replacement patients show that structured rehabilitation and consistent monitoring of function lead to meaningful improvements in daily activity scores following surgery. These improvements, they don't stop at 6 weeks. They continue as strength and movement quality develop. And generally, the fourth phase is the refinement phase, which often spans 6 months to a year after surgery. I always tell people it takes 6 months to a year to fully heal from this surgery. It really is true. This is where many patients finally feel that the knee behaves like part of their body again rather than a surgical site. Confidence increases. Activities that once felt demanding begin to feel natural again. Research examining patient-reported outcomes after joint replacement shows that much of the functional improvement occurs within the first 2 to 6 months after surgery, but meaningful gains can still occur beyond that period as individuals regain strength and mobility. Understanding these phases can completely change how people interpret their healing process. If someone expects full recovery by 6 weeks, anything slower may feel like something is wrong. But if someone understands that this full process unfolds over months, those same experiences can feel normal and expected. Another reason the 6-week expectation causes confusion is that healing involves several different systems in the body, and each of them improves on a different timeline. Tissue healing tends to occur relatively early. Strength takes longer. Movement confidence and endurance often take even longer than that. Balance and coordination may continue to improve for months. Studies tracking balance recovery after knee replacement show measurable changes across the first 6 months of rehabilitation, reinforcing the idea that the neuromuscular process continues long after early healing, especially healing of the skin. When patients understand that these systems progress at different speeds, all of their rehabilitation becomes a little easier to interpret. Another important factor is that every patient begins this process from a different starting point. Some individuals enter surgery with relatively strong muscles and good mobility. Others arrive after years of pain, reduced activity, and significant muscle weakness. And these starting differences influence how their entire rehabilitation unfolds. Research examining outcomes after knee replacement has shown that comorbid conditions such as diabetes can influence postoperative pain, strength, and physical function, highlighting that health factors play a role in these trajectories. None of this means that those individuals will be significantly limited. It just means that the timelines can vary some. Another piece of the puzzle involves physical therapy and rehabilitation structure. There's actually significant variation in how many rehabilitation visits patients receive after knee replacement, and experts increasingly recommend a flexible, individualized approach based on patient goals and patient progress rather than a rigid number of visits. And this reinforces that all of this healing is not one size fits all. Some people require extended strengthening and mobility work to achieve their goals, while others regain independence a little more quickly. What truly predicts long-term success is not how fast someone gets to the 6-week mark, which, 6 weeks is 6 weeks. You can't really get there any faster. It's really whether they continue building strength, movement quality, and activity over time. This perspective can transform how people approach the process. Instead of asking, why am I not normal yet? A more productive question might be, what step of the process am I in right now? Each phase has a purpose. Early healing protects the surgical repair. Mid-stage rehab rebuilds strength and mobility. Later stages restore endurance, balance, and confidence. When people understand this progression, they often experience a little less frustration, and they might tend to have a little more patience with the process. And patience plays an important role. A knee replacement is designed to last for many years. Taking several months to rebuild full function, it's not a delay, it's a natural part of the process. So if someone tells you that you should be fully healed in 6 weeks, remember that this phrase usually refers to a milestone, not a finish line. At 6 weeks, many people are turning an important corner, but many of the most meaningful improvements continue unfolding in the months that follow. And that's exactly how that rehabilitation is supposed to work. If you're finding yourself wondering what you should be focusing on right now, I've created something to help with that. It's called the Total Knee Success Insider, my email newsletter that's tailored to where you are in your knee replacement journey. It's completely free, delivered right to your inbox, and designed to walk alongside you through each stage, whether you're preparing for surgery, early in recovery, or further along and working on strength and function. You'll receive educational, evidence-based guidance at the right time, so you're not trying to sort through everything all at once. If that sounds like something that would help you feel more confident and clear, you can find the link in the show notes and join the Total Knee Success Insider. In the next episode, we're going to take a closer look at another belief that shapes how people approach knee replacement. The idea that a knee replacement only lasts about 10 years. Just like the 6-week expectation, this is another timeline that's often misunderstood. And when you look at the research, the story is very different. We'll walk through what modern implant longevity actually looks like and how that information might change the way you think about timing and decision-making. And remember, if your knee doesn't feel normal yet, that doesn't mean you're behind. It means you're still moving forward one step at a time. Thanks for joining me. I'm Michelle, and this has been the Total Knee Success Podcast. This podcast is for educational purposes only. Discover more at totalkneesuccess.com, and be sure to subscribe and share, because every step forward takes you closer to living the life you love.